going on, fight fans? So today we're going to talk about blocking. This is one of the things that a lot of people have asked me questions on because it appears that there isn't anything consistent when it comes to blocking. But I will tell you this, blocking in the game is very consistent, which is why there is this kind of rule set that I'm going to put together when it comes to blocking. One caveat with blocking, however, it is not remotely the best form of defense in the game. If I was to rank defense in the game, I would go distance control being number one, so being too far away from your opponent so that your opponent just simply cannot hit you as the number one thing. And I'll explain why I rank it in this way. Then head movement being number two, and number three, the final form or the final version of defense, blocking. Because you're going to get much more consistency from all of the other forms of defense. Distance, head movement, then blocking. Now, why is that the case? Why is blocking number three? And usually I tend to use blocking as a kind of fail-safe if the first two were basically, if my opponent was able to circumvent the first two, then I would normally use the third as a fail-safe to prevent them from hitting me. But why is it that I have blocking as the last one? The reason that I have blocking as the last one is because of desync issues with the game. We understand that there's desync in the game, and sometimes where the person isn't exactly where they are in that exact moment. Therefore, distance is something that can kind of circumvent that time difference that you might be experiencing. Same thing with head movement. Yeah, maybe you get hit, but at least when it comes to defense, the game only registers what you experienced in terms of what happened to you based off of your defense. So even if the other person feels that they've hit you, if in your screen they did not hit you, then that punch simply won't register, and it's balanced because that would also be afforded to your opponent as well. So always pay attention to cues when you are throwing punches to ensure that you are landing or that you did land. This is why sometimes there's discrepancies where people are like, oh my God, I was beating him up and I don't understand why I did no damage, but he did so much damage. It is simply because of the desync, and there are punches that you are landing visually, but you're not actually landing in real life. Like, you're not landing it on his screen, therefore it's not registering. And that's because of desync. He moved out of the way for him, but not for you. But you want to pay attention to the crowd noise. If you hear the crowd cheer, that means that you landed. If you don't hear the crowd cheer, then it's kind of up in the air, right? So the crowd cheering is going to give you an indicator of punches landed. Sometimes you might hear the crowd cheer and it might look like you didn't hit him on your end. But if in his end he did get hit, then you will get that registered for you as a hit. So there are times where I'll throw a big jab and it looked like they moved out of the way, but the crowd would cheer. Therefore, that punch, in my mind, I know it registered even though I didn't necessarily hit the person. Of course, rule of thumb is to try to hit the person because you don't necessarily know where they're going to move next. So you want to ensure that you are hitting your opponent. Now, when it comes to blocking, the best way to learn how effective blocking is is through looking at third-person gameplay. You don't necessarily have to even look at your own third-person gameplay. You could just look at third-person gameplay to see and hear if something is landing or if something is being blocked. There's a very distinct sound for block, and there's a very distinct sound for punches landed, right? One thing that people do is that they just put their hands up, right? So if you're here, you just go like this and that's it. You should block, right? It feels gamified and intuitive to go like this, right? Oh, there should be now this force field. None of your punches should land. But unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, there's a consistency to what this game decides is blocked or not. It's fluid. It is very, very, well, I want to say it's fluid in the sense that it changes, but there is nothing that is foolproof. Absolutely nothing. So if you block like this, somebody could hit you with an uppercut right here and it would land. Somebody can throw a punch right around the guard right here and it would land. The only thing you're blocking is right here and right here. So understand that the arms are part of your defense, absolutely. But blocking right here like this is still leaving all of this, well, not up here, but all of this here open. And you have to be aware of that, which is one of the reasons why, because of desync, blocking becomes much more complicated than all of the other forms of defense, distance, and head movement. So just because you put your hands up does not mean you've created this force field where you cannot get hit. One thing that I had to learn from playing from watching the third person camera is that you have to be okay with going like this. You have to be okay with doing that because a lot of people are going to hook you force them to throw straight punches because people are going to throw hooks, and to defend the hooks you gotta put your hands on the sides of your face. Believe it or not, the game will read. It won't be in the front. You won't see it, so it'll feel weird, but it will read that your arms or your hands are right here. Your gloves are right here. So when they're hooking you on the sides, you will actually be blocking it. However, you leave this part of your face open. So this is why, to me, it is not the best form of defense. And I only usually use it as a failsafe if the other forms of defense collapse, right? If the layers collapse, then I'll try to block. Now, understanding that you block no matter what, if your hands are in the way, if your arms are in the way, you could also preemptively do certain things. For example, if you put your hand out, it's much harder to target. Just think about it here in the way that this camera is set. Right here in my office, right? Notice how little room you have if I do this. Notice how little room you have. You will now have to try to come in and punch around, right? Because I've taken so much real estate away from you by simply creating what they call in boxing offensive traffic, right? So this is me creating traffic for you. I'm putting my hand out and doing this right here. It is very tough because you can't punch straight through. My arm is out, so you can't really, it's really hard to get over here. You have to come in, and while you're walking in, I could kind of do this, right? So there's a lot that you have to think about because my hand is out, and in this game, that will block. If you hit this, it will block. Doesn't matter that my hands aren't here. This isn't like a Street Fighter kind of thing where you go, dude, and it's like, now you're in block mode. No, you're always in block mode, and you're always in punch mode at all times. So if I go like this, create offensive traffic, I'm also, in a sense, blocking your punches. But I'm blocking your punches not just physically, but also psychologically. You have to think of a way of getting around that hand that you know will block your punches. Now you could slip under and go to the body, or you could kind of step to the side and come with a straight around. So it's not foolproof, but it does do things where you as the player know that there's only a few other options that the person has, and it creates like process of elimination, so you know what to defend next. And remember, just because you have this hand out doesn't mean that this hand isn't doing anything at all. So because you have this process of elimination, you know, okay, the person is going to have to come around somewhere or go to the body. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this hand to protect that, right? So if I see them move this way, boom, I'm doing this, right? Or if I see them move this way and go down, I'm doing this and stepping around, right? Or if I see them move this way, I'm doing that, right? Or if I see them move this way and down, I'm bringing this down. So there's different things that you can do to kind of force them to do something, and there's different things that you can do to preemptively block, not just physically, but also psychologically, knowing they know that this can block, therefore they're not going to throw down this path, right? Also, if you notice when I'm fighting, one of the things that I like to do is I like to be like this. This is a really good stance, right? Because in this stance here, sometimes people like to be like this, but unfortunately that opens up your body. I like to be like this because my body is not as open, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's being blocked. Look at all of this right here. And this is without gloves, right? You have to imagine the gloves have more of a circumference, right? So if I'm like this, you throw my face to the left, boom, I'm right here. Boom, I'm right there, right? Boom, I could even take your hand out before it even gets close, right? So if I see it coming, I can stop it. If I see it come over here, I can stop it, right? You go for my body, I got a lot blocking my body because just lowering it right here, now I'm blocking right here and right here, right? And my arms, remember the arms are part of the defense, part of the blocking. So you have a lot of options. You have a lot of options, or you're taking away a lot of options from your opponent, just visually speaking, which then helps you open them up so that you could throw certain things, right? Of course, there's ways that you can get around this, like with feinting. You can feint to the body, person drops low and you go up high, right? I've been caught with that by a lot of players, right? Where they'll just go low and then come up, right? So then I'm just like, oh, boom, and I get hit. There was an infamous video, or not infamous, but one of like one video that was pretty like telling when that happened to me during one of like my fights that I've put up on YouTube, where the person went low and then came high and I dropped my hands, and that coming high just dropped me immediately. So it was a really good shot. You have to just be conscious that there's this fluidity where all of this is everything is blocking, and just going like this will only block this area. It's not going to block everything. It will only block this area. So stop thinking that because you went like this, that a hook can go around your guard, because it will, right? That an uppercut can't go under your guard, because it will. You have to be aware of that and understand that you have to do more, which is why I always recommend to make blocking the third kind of go-to. Don't be a person that says the number one thing I'm gonna do is block, and then I'm gonna apply the other stuff, because there's gonna be so many holes that people can poke at, right? When someone's blocking, and depending on their blocking tendencies, the way I'm thinking about it is I'm gonna go for the things that I notice that they're not protecting on a consistent basis, because they're gonna default to which means, guess what? I could just preemptively already know that I can throw around their guard, that I can go to the body, that I can throw uppercuts in between, right? I'm gonna already know that I can do that, and that's how I'm even gonna throw my punches, so that when you panic and block, or when you decide, oh, it's block time, you're gonna go right here, and it's gonna feel comfortable because you're gonna see your gloves on screen, but I'm gonna go right around, and I'm gonna hit you. And I'm gonna keep hitting you, right? I'm gonna keep going right around and keep hitting you. So understand, you can block with your hands out, right? And this creates offensive traffic. Sometimes you could even go like this, right? It creates even more offensive. It's so uncomfortable, right? And then come back here, use this one, have one closer just in case, right? Boom. You can just stop their hands as they're coming. It will stop their punch in its tracks, right? You can make sure that you're in different parts of your body. Like, this is good for protecting straight punches coming straight at you. This is really good because the glove can't fit through the center, but it opens up everything else, right? So you got to make sure you're constantly changing it based off of the patterns of your opponent's punches. And also defending your body, right? Defending your body, doing things that like keeping your hands in places where you can quickly get to most of where your opponent is trying to go, right? When I go like this, whoop, 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 right? All of this is to get to places quickly. But again, it's a fail safe. If I'm like this, I'm definitely gonna be moving my head. I'm definitely gonna be trying to keep my distance, right? I'm gonna measure the distance with my hands, right? This lets you know how close you are. Don't be afraid to use your jab hand to kind of measure how close you are, how far. If you're like this and you're pretty, like, you're not next to their face, that means that they're more than likely not next to your face. Obviously, reach matters, but you could have your hand out, let them throw some punches going like this, and it kind of lets you know how far they can throw as well. So you get that measuring distance. Use the other two. Use blocking as a failsafe, just simply because the game has the desync, and with the desync, it's gonna make blocking even harder. Now, if it was like real life boxing, you could use blocking as a really important defensive forefront, right? But because this game has that desync, it makes it much harder. Moving and having distance, it plays in your favor in terms of desync. Just going like this and using that as the thing that's gonna defend you the most out of all that, it doesn't play in your favor with the desync. Because remember, punches that actually register on your screen is what matters. So if you see a punch and you dodge a punch, it will be dodged. If you see a punch coming and you think you're blocking it, but they broke through some sort of a hole or whatever, you're gonna get hit, right? So keep that in mind, right? Distance, dodging, and then blocking. But hopefully this helps you understand the nuance of blocking in the game and understand that it's not that easy, because there isn't a one size fits all block stance, right? It's not a force field. Just because you put your hands next to your face, you gotta track what's going on, pay attention to where the punches are coming from, and be able to block. And that's pretty much it. And every little crevice, somebody's going to be able to get through it and hit you. So hopefully this video has helped you understand blocking a little bit more. Of course, as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.